What's up, everybody? It is Friday, March 4th, TGIF Friday. Woo! What a week, man. What a week. The war rages on in Ukraine. Looks like Russia's taken a lot of losses, but you got to be careful with the news because we've seen a lot of it is fake. It's very hard. You know, this is the fog of war. It's very hard to know in actuality what is going on. But that's what it looks like. But the losses will not deter Russia from continuing on with this war. I just don't see that happening. You got now 74% of Americans who are on board with a NATO imposed no-fly zone. And the thing that's scary about that is, once an idea, once a viewpoint reaches a certain critical mass among the public, then we often see that viewpoint become policy. And again, I don't think Americans have thought this through. I think that could lead to nuclear war. This thing has every possibility of escalating even further to the worst possible outcome. And I just hope and pray it doesn't come to that. Let's talk about what's going on now with commodity markets. I mean, and I said this was going to happen going back when these sanctions were applied. Sanctions have the same effect as war. In the end, people are going to die. The effect may occur a little bit more slowly, but it's the same thing. Wheat prices this week, wheat up like over 100%, all-time record highs. Many people are going to starve. I mean, there's no way around it. You got countries that are large wheat importers, in the Middle East and Europe, and you're taking out that supply. I mean, that is, people are going to die from that, just like people dying from bombs being lobbed and the war that is being fought over there. It's the same thing. I mean, we can't even say anymore that this may lead to World War III. This basically is World War III because we might not be engaged in it in a military way, but we're all going to feel the effects just like it was a world war. I mean, when you're paying $20 for a loaf of bread and $10 for a pack of pasta, and then you're paying whatever, $10 or $15 a gallon for gasoline, that's the same thing as if the supplies were bombed in a war or the production facilities were taken out. It's the same exact thing, or transportation facilities so that you can't get it. Same thing. People are going to die. And the sanctions are not coming off. Even if the war stopped tomorrow, you're not going to see the sanctions come off. The West is universally aligned to want to punish Russia, and we're seeing ridiculous things now, like Russian orchestra conductors being vilified and kicked out of the orchestra, or students being sent home. I mean, this is just getting to the point where the emotion is so high and nobody is thinking this thing through. And when you have a scenario like that, when people are highly emotional and they react out of emotion, out of anger, out of fear, you have any kind of irrational behavior that could develop from that. And you're talking about two nuclear superpowers. I mean, I cannot stress this enough. I just saw a thing today. 74% of Americans are on board now with NATO imposing a no-fly zone in Russia. And again, this is just, it's insanity. It's complete insanity. We don't think these things through. Biden saying today, we understand that prices are high, so we're going to create really good jobs for people. By the way, the job report today was very good, but that was completely overlooked by what's going on with the war developments. But he said, we're going to create great jobs. Well, that's fantastic. Create great jobs, high-paying jobs with a living wage. There's no supply. We're in an unprecedented situation of massive supply shocks all over the place. I mean, we just got through a damn pandemic where we had to deal with a supply shock. And now we're having something maybe 10, 20 times worse. Nobody thought this through. I mean, the irony of this whole thing is that Russia is a major, major commodity producer. You know, they might see a drastic, dramatic fall in their standard of living as it relates to the new, I'll call them the new Russian bourgeoisie, you know, the sort of affluent middle class that has been rising up now for, you know, since like the fall of the Soviet Union. And I know people there, and they're very, you know, they're scared, man, because they're gonna lose all that, and they are losing all that. But for the average Russian who's still, you know, poor relative to Western standards, I mean, that's a country still with massive supplies of everything. Of food, of energy, of fresh water, of land. The irony is those people, that class of people within Russia, may not feel it as bad as how we're going to feel it. How the average class here in America or the West is going to feel it. Because it's going to make a big, big difference. People are going to be hurting here big time when they're going to have to, you know, when they're paying $15 a gallon for gasoline, or they can't heat their homes because the cost of fuel or natural gas is too high, or when they're paying $10, $15 for a loaf of bread or maybe a pack of spaghetti. It's terrible what's going on. It is absolutely terrible what's going on, and this was all fomented and you know, pushed and pushed and pushed by the United States and NATO for years and years and years. I spoke about that. It's not a question of, hey, you know, Ukraine, all they wanted was to be independent. Well, all the ethnic Russians in Donbass wanted to be independent too. You can't, you know, continue on with this just ridiculous level of hypocrisy. Like, it's okay for one group, it's not okay for another group. If you're talking about self-determination, if you're talking about independence, then it has to be a universal concept. It can't be, it could be like it's only applicable to these people. You know, these people we should allow, they should live. If any one of them dies, it's an outrage. But if these people get blown up, if 14,000 Russians in the eastern part of Ukraine get blown up, that's no big deal. By the way, you never see that. You never saw that while that was going on for 8 years, that war in the eastern part. You never saw that on the front pages. Now, all the newspapers around the world, every single day they carry these horrific images of people being slaughtered. It's all on the Ukraine side. You never saw that. I'm not trying to stick up for one side or the other. What I'm saying is that there has to be parity. There has to be, if you say it's no good for these people to be killed, it's wrong, it's immoral, then you have to say that for everybody. You can't say it's okay to kill these people, to kill these other people, and we'll just ignore that. They didn't sign on to a U.S.-backed coup in 2014. And there's plenty of evidence. This is not some kind of Russian propaganda. You literally have Victoria Nuland, who was the Assistant Secretary of State at the time, you know, on tape, in audio, talking about the coup and who the United States has already chosen to replace Yanukovych. And by the way, Yanukovych, he acquiesced to the demands of the opposition. Today I posted a thing on Twitter. This guy, I think if I pronounce his name correct, Yevhen Karas, he is the head of this neo-Nazi, this ultra right-wing nationalist group C14, okay? And he's on video. You could look this guy's name, his name up or Google him, Yevhen Karas. He's saying if it wasn't for the neo-Nazis in the Maidan protests, if it wasn't for it, he admitted it was only a small group. It was maybe 8 to 10%, but he said it doesn't matter the size of the group. What matters is the effectiveness. He said if it wasn't for us, the neo-Nazis in that Maidan, protest, riot, whatever you want to call it, He said it would have just turned out to be a gay pride parade. And he was laughing. He said, we're the ones who are going to, push this revolution. We're going to, we're the ones who created the conditions for that the overthrow, that the coup succeeded. And we're all about violence. We're all about killing. We love to kill. He said that. We love to kill. Then you had another picture today that I posted of Biden when he was a vice president. He went over there, he's shaking hands, all smiley-faced, with the leader of the Svoboda Party. The Svoboda Party is an ultra-right-wing nationalist party within the Ukraine parliament, the Ukraine government. And Biden, you can see him, he's shaking his hands, palling around with this guy. And his son got that job with Burisma. Burisma was the company that created that fake document against Trump. And his son was on the payroll. It's so crooked, it's so corrupt, it is unbelievable. NATO kept pushing for this. They kept pushing for this. The United States, let's encircle Russia with nuclear-capable missiles everywhere, from the Baltics to the western part of Russia that's moving into Ukraine. They tried to do it in Georgia. I mean, come on. What do you think would happen? Seriously. What do you think would happen if Russia and China and Iran got together and said, hey, and then overthrew the government in Mexico with the intention of placing nuclear-tipped missiles on the border between Mexico and the United States and Canada, got them involved too? I mean, seriously, come on. Does anyone think the United States would just sit there and allow that to happen? That would be aggression. That would be a cause for war, to take that out. I mean, we had this already in 1962 with the Cuban Missile Crisis that almost resulted in nuclear war. We had that when Russia tried to put nukes in Cuba. I mean, history repeats itself, but no, Americans are like, what is Russia doing? What is this horrible reaction to, this poor little Ukraine that was just, there doing nothing, and they're so innocent. First of all, Ukraine, it's not even a democracy. It's not. This guy, Zelensky, all right, he jailed the leader of the opposition party. He shut down 3 pro-Russian television stations. What kind of democracy is that? His government, and by the way, this guy ran on a platform of normalizing relations with Russia. Yes, he did. You could check that out. But once he got elected, and he got huge popular support. I think something like 75% of the population of Ukrainians voted for this guy. But once he got elected, those elements within the government didn't allow him to do anything. Nor did the United States. The United States was not for any kind of rapprochement with Russia. They wanted to keep pushing. And so he caved in to those people. And now he's running around like some big hero. How are you a hero? You're weak. You didn't stand up to that. You just went along with what the powerful interests and what they wanted. And what the United States wanted. How are you a hero? Running around with the khaki vests on all day long. The whole thing is a disaster, and we're going to feel the blowback. Like I said, we're going to definitely feel, we're already feeling the blowback, but this is just probably the early stages of it. Yesterday I talked about, inside money, outside money, more developments now. I think, the Chinese currency is very interesting because China has not signed on to the sanctions. So sanction risk for holding RMB seems very low. Look what's happening to the euro now, and that's I'm loving it. I mean, I'm short the euro. Look what's happening to the euro. Europe decided to go along with Washington, and the only one who's going to benefit from this is Washington. Europe is not going to benefit from this. Look at what's happening to the euro right now for going along with this idiotic plan. Massive sanctions, pushing incessantly for Ukraine to join NATO. It's a disaster for Europe. Look at the German stock market. Look at the euro. the blowback now big time on them in terms of their loss in their standard of living. But that's what, that's what you get. You go along with these maniacs in Washington, that's what you get. A bunch of warmongers. They never stop. Never stop. It never ends. And this hubris of the United States with this notion of exceptionalism, where we could do anything. We could bomb Iraq on false pretenses. We could kill 1 million Iraqis. But we're untouchable in the sense of, our cause. How we are the good guys. It's bullshit, man. Anyway. So much for my rant for today. All right, folks. It's Friday. Let's calm down. Everybody got to calm down. And hopefully we get out of this thing alive. Nuclear war is right around the corner. Let's hope we don't see that no-fly zone implemented by NATO. I mean, if you see that, if they start talking about that in a serious way, I mean, get safe somewhere. Try. I don't think anywhere in the northern hemisphere is going to be safe. I think you got to be in the southern hemisphere. From everything I read, generally these winds, they don't go down past the equator. Like, it's separate. The circulation of wind and air in the northern hemisphere is different from that in the southern hemisphere. In the northern hemisphere, it's going to be like inhospitable. So if they start talking about that in a serious way, and luckily right now we have cooler heads at the Pentagon who are saying that's a non-starter. But if they start talking like that, get out. All right, everybody. See you. Bye.